Welcome to the Modern Monk Podcast. This is episode number 15, the prime number. Today we're going to be talking about burning the boats. My name is Cormac Taylor. I'm here with Toby Chilver. How you doing, Tobes?
I'm feeling good. This is one that hits close to home, number 15.
This is very topical for something that happened in your life recently, Toby. But first of all, I want to start defining terms here. What do we mean by burning the boats?
Burning the boats for me is committing to a plan in a way that increases the friction of choosing any other plan. So I essentially just think about friction when I'm talking about burning bridges. So like the level of commitment that you have to that plan is just reducing the friction of that course of actions and increasing the friction that it would be required to change course at any point. Yeah.
So we're thinking of it as like a meta environment. We talk a lot about creating a good environment being making it hard to do things that you don't want to do and easy to do things that you do want to do. You're talking about burning the boats in the same way, whereas you're making it really hard to go down a path that you don't want to follow and very easy to go down the path that you eventually want to go down.
Yeah, and I think like burning the boats is quite like a graphic image that comes into your head of Alexander the Great setting light to some boats. But I think that's a kind of core difference, that it's not incremental change. It's like a step change. There's one or two actions that you're taking that are creating a very large increase in the amount of friction to the other plans and decrease to your current plan. Like it's not a small step. It's a leap.
Yeah, sure. True. That's the big differentiator there, I think, is that these are generally one or two big changes you're making rather than gradual improvements over time. It's not like, let me replace some of the food in my pantry so it's better. It's like, let me cut off a path. Let me cut off an option that I can take for my life so that the options that I have are better. It's like a big change.
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to include there was something about like reversibility. Like some sort of, you're taking an action or you're making a choice that is irreversible and it commits you down this path and you're not able to go back to any other path. But I think in reality, there's almost no choices like that. You can almost always get back to where you were or make a choice, again in the future that changes paths. It's just going to be much, much, much more difficult to do that. You're going to have to undo things. So I don't like using the phrase like irreversible choices, because for me, like recently, burning the bridges was quitting my 9-to-5, committing to being an entrepreneur, working on my own business. And, that for me is burning the bridges, but it's not an irreversible change. Like if I really wanted to, I could go and find another job. And like, sure, it might not be as good, it might not be in as great of a place, but like, it's possible to take the steps back and make that decision. But still, like there's been some level of, irreversible damage that's been done, with the company, with my team, with my, and in the same way, there's been a level of commitment to the goal that has, allowed me to feel like the boats have been burnt, and there's only one way forward.
So let's talk about that. That's why we're talking specifically about burning the boats today, is because as of last Friday, you've officially stopped working. You've quit the 9-to-5 completely. You're all in as an entrepreneur now. So talk us through that process. How's that been?
Yeah, I mean, it's been like 2 years in the making at least. I started full-time work over 2 years ago, almost 3. And, almost a year in, that's when I first started, my first business, this camper van rental business. And it had to be a side hustle from that point, just because I was reliant on the 9-to-5 for income. I wasn't essentially developed enough as an entrepreneur. My mindset, my belief wasn't at the level where I could even consider burning the boats or going all in on something. But as time has progressed, my self-belief has increased. I've been able to get rid of some limiting beliefs about myself. And I've been in the position now for, a few months maybe, where it's felt like the right thing to do. And that's kind of hard to articulate sometimes, just kind of your gut feeling. But I think it's an unlock that comes from first mindset, and then it trickles down into kind of like a whole body feeling. You're being drawn to this outcome, and it's kind of like exciting, and there's a lot less fear. But that's kind of the process that I've gone through, and definitely in the past like 18 months has been unlocking that mindset, increasing my self-belief, and deciding, okay, well, if this is what I want, to be an entrepreneur, to live all over the world, to have time freedom, then I'm going to have to quit my job. And if I don't quit my job and I wait till I get there first, I might never get there. So there came a point where, okay, well, I'm going to have to take a leap of faith. I'm going to have to not have the results yet, but still commit to this course of action, to this plan, because I believe that I'm going to get there. And so burning the bridges now only increases my chance of getting to that goal.
And that was the big thing for you. It wasn't necessarily that there was some sort of big material change in your life. It was really your belief in yourself that you could do this, that this was a possibility. And I think the fact that you knew this is a possibility, but not only is this a possibility, but by burning the boats, it significantly increases the probability that I'll achieve my goal. That's when you combine that self-belief with the fact that this just makes sense. If I burn the boats, my life will change. The chance of me achieving the end outcome is going to change. And I think all of that came from your belief, as you've been saying.
Yeah, and it was kind of nice. Like, I think I had got to that mental state quite a few months ago, but I wanted to build a proper nest egg to where I could give entrepreneurship a shot without having to make money. I had savings to draw on, and so I'd kind of already got to the logically, like, this is what I want to do. It feels right emotionally, and like I understand what I'm doing and the consequences of it, and I'm happy with that. And then it was just an equation. Okay, have I reached my target number yet? Do the maths. Yes. Okay, well, now I do it. So it was nice that it had removed all the fear already when I got to the point. I just got to enjoy the process of like patting yourself on the back. You're committing to something big here. This is allowing yourself the opportunity or a better chance at achieving the life that you want for yourself.
How would you say that how you think and approach about your life has changed? I know it's only been a few days now, but since having to wake up and go, all right, I now have to go to work, spend 8 or 9 hours at work, and then go home, and then it's basically the end of the day, and I have to do this 5 days a week too. Now I can wake up when I want, work on what I want, and do what I want. How has that changed your approach to how you're seeing your days?
Oh, where do I start? And it has really only been like, a couple of days here, but already I'm so passionate, invigorated, fired up to attack the things that I've already been attacking but have been time limited on. Like learning the Spanish, putting time into the business, preparing for our travel. Not having to only attack these items that really mean the most to me. They're like the things I'm most passionate about, the things I wish I could spend the most time on. Being able to attack those when I have full sleep, whenever I want, like after I've eaten, after I've gymmed, or being able to just put my best hours towards those things is like night and day. Between having to do it between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. before I go to work, or 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. after I get home from work. Like, I'm not operating at my best in those hours. So now not only do I get to optimize my day so that I feel better all the time, I'm well rested, but I get to then put my brain at its peak towards working on the tasks that fulfill me and are pushing me towards my goals. So the feeling is not comparable in terms of just like life enjoyment, day-to-day enjoyment, just having that level of freedom when it's been something that I've desired and craved for so long. It just feels amazing.
I think we both had similar periods in our lives where we wanted to do entrepreneurship full time, but we were working the 9 to 5. I was very similar to you. There was a period where I'd be waking up at 4 a.m., working on my business from 4 till 8, then going to work, and then coming home, and then working out, and then going to sleep. And that is your entire life. And knowing that waking up at 4 a.m., you're not feeling particularly good. You've kind of jeopardized your sleep. And the hours between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. probably aren't going to be your best hours. And knowing that you can't put your best hours for the things that are going to produce what you think in the end is what you want to do, and then having to use your best hours doing something that you know you don't want to do is just really draining. And I don't think it's something that you can do consistently. And this is something that we talked about in the last podcast, which is consistency. Removing this big chunk of your life that you're devoting to not pursuing what you want to be unlocks all the time to put the effort and focus and hours into what you truly want to become. Big unlock.
Yeah, and we haven't even started to talk about the drain of having to clock in for a job that you know you're not passionate about, for a career that you know you don't want to develop. Like, it's a very large portion of your day and your life that is having a negative drain on you as a person. You know, it's sucking not only time and energy from you, but just like your mental state when you know you don't want to be in this place and you're having to do things that you don't want to do, and you wish you could be doing something else, something better that's what you have decided is what you want for your life. So just removing those 8 hours of not having to mentally fight yourself to be like, no, it's okay, like you're doing the right things, like you're gonna get there, like, kind of talking yourself through the day is it's probably another reason why it feels so amazing, so invigorating. I feel like such relief just all the time.
People talk about the matrix, and I think a lot of people think that you're in the matrix if you're working a 9 to 5. I don't really think that's the case. I think the case is you're in the matrix if you're allocating the majority of your most effective hours to doing something that you hate. Mm-hmm. That could be working on a business that you hate. You're still in the matrix, right? It could be, and I think for most people, it is going to your 9 to 5 that you hate. But if you're in a 9 to 5 and you're really passionate about your career and you really enjoy the work, I don't see that as being in the matrix. You're moving towards your goals. But I think for a lot of us, we're in a 9 to 5 to earn a salary, to make money, and it's just comfortable. You're just consistently getting paid to just clock in and rock up. And I think both of us were definitely in the matrix in the sense that we did not enjoy what we're doing. We knew it wasn't where we wanted to be in the end. And being able to go, all right, let me just get this out of my life. Let me get these 40 hours a week back, my most effective 40 hours a week back. And you realize, whoa, this is a lot of time back. This is a lot of time that I can be incredibly effective at pursuing my goals. When we combine this with the dopamine detoxing, removing the online entertainment, you now have 40 hours a week back, plus probably another 40 hours a week back that you were spending on online entertainment. And you go, oh, wow, this is a lot of time. These are a lot of things that I can do with my life. And the potential that you have just seems limitless. When you realize, oh, this is a big amount of time that I no longer don't have to devote to something that I hate, you realize just how many options that you do have, how much potential you do have in your life.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's a point where you should and shouldn't burn the boats, like, because you just get so much choice, so much option. You kind of already want to know what you want to do with that before you get to that point. Otherwise, it's overwhelming. You're just dropped in the sea and you don't know which way to swim. But I mean, we both knew exactly what we wanted to do, and we just wanted more time to be able to do it. 100%.
Yeah. All right. So I want to ask, what do you think is the biggest unlock that you get from burning the boats?
I think once you have burned the boats, it's the focus and the lack of distraction. Because by burning the boats, you've committed yourself to one plan, one course of actions. And that brings you a level of focus where you can kind of back yourself into a corner a little bit and say, okay, well, now I have to go hard at this because I made this big sacrifice, this big choice to be able to do this. And I think a lot of people suffer from, oh, there's this new shiny thing I could try, or here's a new business idea I could start. Here's a new person I could go meet. And I think that is probably the biggest killer of anyone's progress or goals or dreams, is just switching way too early, like not even surpassing level 1 and then just choosing something new to focus on. But I think if you've burnt the boats in pursuit of one goal, then you get an insane level of focus and determination without the distraction to just attack it. Like you've been given an opportunity. It's almost like you're a horse in I don't know what they call it, the start of a horse or is that at the start of a race when you're in the grill or whatever, like a horse before the gun's gone off, and you're there like, okay, well, I know I really want to get to the finish line, and then you burn the bridges, suddenly the gates open, and like you just go, like you already know where you want to go and you can attack it. I think before that there's this risk of having too many choices, being too distracted by what's out there, what's possible.
Yeah, and I think the reality is, if you burn the boats before you have a clear idea of your North Star, there's unlimited possibilities and more time for you to do lots of different things. And sometimes that can be more of a distraction. But I think if you have the North Star and you're set on it, then as soon as you burn the boats, it's as you say, it's like the gates open, boom, I can tunnel vision on that one thing. We talk a lot about your two most valuable resources are really your time and your attention. When you burn the boats, you get more time and you get more attention. And if you can channel those effectively into your goals, you're going to get there faster, of course. It's just naturally going to happen like that. If you're draining a huge amount of your time and attention on something that you have no real interest in, it's not really purposeful, it's not moving you towards anything, then you're losing out on a huge amount of long-term potential that you're trading for a paycheck day to day. And that's good if you need the paycheck to keep going. But if you don't need it to keep going, then you're sacrificing a lot of long-term potential for right now. And especially people that are unnecessarily consuming, buying things all the time that they don't really need. You're essentially trading your freedom to allocate your time and attention effectively for things, for items. And I think that's a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, and I mean, we had a podcast on attention, and I think a word that we used a lot there was potency. Like your potency as a person is essentially defined by your time and attention, especially as someone who's in the matrix or having to spend large amounts of time on tasks they don't want. And yet you just increase your potency. You are suddenly more capable, you're more potent, you have a higher threshold for what you can achieve. Like the bar has almost been lifted.
Yeah.
And like your ability to accelerate increases.
Yeah. I mean, just big time. I think the good thing about the 9 to 5, or just having to allocate a lot of time to doing things you don't want to do, is it restricts your time a lot. So you have to be very effective with the spare time you have. If you remove the 9 to 5, or you remove that thing that's taking a lot of your time, but you can remain effective with your time and you have more time, woof, big unlocks. But for a lot of people, they get more time back and then they
get diluted.
They spend it on online entertainment, let's be honest. They watch more TikToks, they watch more TV shows, they start playing more video games. And then it's like, well, you're better off just being in the 9 to 5 at that point. But if you can use the time efficiently, it is massive unlocks. Potency as an individual, laser focused on the goals, the person you want to become, huge.
Yeah, and there's an interesting idea to play with here. Like we're talking about burn the boats. And what we're really talking about is like ripping up a contract with, your employer. And like, that's like a big thing because it's official and, you've signed up to this and now you're signing off of it. But what if, you're not working a 9 to 5, you don't need the money and all you're really doing is just not attacking your goals. Like you can mentally burn the bridges there and like commit to something. But there's something about like the obligation that was stopping you from where you wanted to go, from what you wanted to do. And the burning the bridges is like breaking that, and it's very public. It's official. Mm. But I'm thinking about, is it still burning the boats if you're just deciding that this is what I want to do, and there has to be some level of you're giving something up, or you're, like we said, we're increasing the friction of other options, or we're...
Mm. Well, I mean, the way I see burning the boats is just removing a path that guarantees that you live a life that you don't want to live. So if you're removing that path and you're removing that option, then all you're doing is just allowing yourself to pursue that one thing. Burning the boats doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm no longer working at X job, or I'm no longer, doing this sort of contracted hours. It's more, I'm no longer going to do this thing that guarantees that I don't get to where I want to get to. I think it's just that for a lot of people that is having the job, because that is such a huge time input that takes so long. But it could be anything really. For example, If you're someone who plays 5 hours a day playing video games, and you burn that boat, you're burning a 5-hour contract that you have with yourself that is guaranteeing that you won't get to where you want to become. It doesn't necessarily have to be working a job or not, but it's almost just removing the option to not be who you want to become, because there's no guarantee necessarily that you'll get to your outcome, but it will definitely increase the likelihood that you get there.
Yeah, no, okay. I was building the exact same example in my head. I could imagine, if you're a student and you play a lot of video games and okay, I'm going to burn the bridges. I want to be a better student. Burning the bridges would be throwing out the PlayStation, not just like putting it down or like building a routine that I'm only going to do 1 hour a day and it's only going to be here. Like, that's not burning the bridges. That's just, trying to craft your environment and yada yada. Burning the bridges is throwing the PlayStation out. Like you've removed it as an option of something that you can spend your time doing.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of things, abstinence is easier than moderation. For a lot of things, that's the case. And if you're just like, okay, let me throw it out or let me sell it. Let me get rid of it as a possibility for what I want to do. 5 hours a day back to be a better student, whatever it may be, work on my business, work on my health, do all of these things. It doesn't have to be one pursuit necessarily. We have multiple pursuits. We're both trying to get in good shape. We're both trying to run a marathon every month. We're trying to learn different languages. We're trying to live in different countries. We're trying to, build a business. Like there's lots of different pursuits, but it's more that these pursuits are moving us to who we want to become. Video games is not in any way. Watching Netflix is not in any way. Watching a bunch of sport is not in any way. So it's more that we're allocating it to the few things that are going to help us become who we want to become.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point you touched on there with moderation and abstinence. Like if a company is spending billions of dollars on something designed for you, it's gonna be very hard to moderate your relationship with it because like it is designed to be as addicting as possible. And so abstinence is usually the best case.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes, again, we talked about it before, like you can't be relying on willpower and motivation for these types of things. Like, yeah, you got to be crafting your environment or burning the boats, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about it for online entertainment, but it's also the case for things like drinking, for example. It's a lot easier if someone goes, do you want a drink, for you to say, oh, okay, but I'm only going to have 3. And then you have 3 and it's like, oh, come on, have another one. It's like, oh, maybe. But if you say, no, I don't drink, a lot easier to avoid having a huge blowout and getting super drunk. Having the abstinence, I think, in that regard is a lot easier than doing it in moderation. And the same thing with, I want to only spend 30 minutes a day on TikTok. So I'm going to set a screen limit so that when I've scrolled for 30 minutes and destroyed my brain for 30 minutes, my phone is going to go, hey, you've destroyed your brain for 30 minutes. And you can go, cool, ignore, and continue. It's a lot easier if I don't have TikTok on my phone. If I re-download it, I still can't open it and it is impossible to use. Now I just say, okay, I don't use this, rather than, I'll use it for 30 minutes a day. Or I'll just play video games for 30 minutes at the end of the day. Because let's be honest, it's going to be more than 30 minutes. I doubt you can be consistent 50% of the time with that, with moderation over the abstinence.
Yeah, you're just like drip feeding yourself the thing that you want most. And the thing, it's always available to you. Like, unless you're putting extreme blocks in place, you're always going to have that option, which means you're relying on willpower, which is never the case, never the way.
No, and a lot of these things that we want to do in moderation, we want to reduce our consumption, is because we fundamentally know that it's bad. I can't really think of anything that you would go, okay, well, maybe a few things, but for the majority of things, if you're thinking, okay, I need to dial back my use, I need to moderate it, your life is probably better without it. And if it's easier to live without it and your life is better off without it, then maybe that's the better option than trying to moderate your usage and, I'll just do this occasionally, because it's very hard to stick with something that you're doing occasionally.
Yeah, it's almost easier to go from complete abstinence and then reintroduce something in certain environments or certain scenarios than it is the other way, because then you still have that exposure where you're just so much more likely to drift back to old habits.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've been talking about my 9 to 5 a lot, but give me an example of when you've burned some bridges or burned some boats.
Well, my 9 to 5. I was the same as you. I mean, I could talk about my 9 to 5, but I think we've already done that. I'm going to talk about video games. I played a huge amount of video games growing up, about 10, 11 years old, I got given a PlayStation for my birthday. Before that, I wasn't given a DS was a thing back in the day, or a Wii. Like, my parents were very much, you can't do that. They understood that this wasn't good for me, but they were finally like, all right, everyone has this, so okay, you can have
Gave
it.
in.
And I'm a very obsessive person, so I became very obsessed with this because it's got the things that a lot of us crave, the things like the status that you achieve, or the sense of accomplishment of achieving things that you get from video games. And so I became very obsessed with that, and that became something that took up a huge amount of my time for my teenage years, early adulthood. And I really thought about it, and I went, okay, my life would be a lot better without the video games. I would have so much time back without the video games. This is very hard to moderate. So I went, okay, let me just sell my PlayStation. This is what's taking up all my time. Let me just get it out of my life. And I just sold it. And I realized, whoa, I've got a lot of time back and I don't really miss it that much. I think my life's a bit better off without that. And I kind of realized, well, there's a lot of things like that in my life. Things like the online entertainment, right? So slowly over time, I just started getting rid of all the online entertainment. I got rid of the scrolling, and I got rid of binge watching YouTube and watching TV series and gaming, everything. And I realized, why don't I just burn the online entertainment boat completely? Why don't I just say, okay, by myself, I can't touch this stuff at all. What kind of progress could I make? And I've already seen really great progress within a year. What's going to happen in 5 years? That's going to look pretty cool and pretty interesting. I hope to be able to document that experience, but burning that boat was a big unlock, and really combining that with, let me quit my job, let me give myself 40, 50 hours a week back. That's a lot of time back to do things that are going to move me towards my goals. And I've now removed the lowest ROI activities in my life. So that means that generally my growth trajectory is going to improve significantly.
Yeah. I think like all your accolades right now this year, you know, having Dopamine Rewired is a true testament to the fact that you burnt the boats, you increase your potency, and you maintain the same drive and efficiency that you had even when you only had 4 hours a day to work on the things you wanted to. Like, you now have 15 hours a day and you use freaking 13 of them every day to you know, be able to put 4 hours a day into Spanish, to be able to get to the point where you're running a marathon a month, having not run more than 10K like 7 months ago, to, you know, have been in the best shape in your life. Like, all of these things are the testament to you burning the boats, committing to this path, and keeping that level of potency, that level of efficiency, even though you now have all this time where you could have done anything.
That's a very good point of being able to allocate the time efficiently now that you have more of it. Because, I mean, we mentioned this before, but there's a big tendency to start using that time ineffectively because you have more of it. There's some law, I can't remember what the law is, but it is that the work will be stretched to the time that you allocate to it. So if you say to yourself, I need to accomplish this in 5 days, it'll take you 5 days to do. And if you set the goal for, I need to do this in 1 day, then it will take 1 day. And a lot of us, when we have more time, we just say, all right, well, I have more time to do this, so I'll take longer. But if you can keep the time compressed, as it would have been if you were time restricted, but you also have more time, that's when you can make very big progress very quickly. And it's obviously hard to do because there's not as much pressure. You physically do have more time and you can take longer if you wanted to. But if you decide to continue to compress the time, that's when you can make really big progress really quickly.
Yeah. And yeah, you talk about pressure there, but there's other ways of creating pressure, both internally and externally. And I think you've probably done that, no? Yeah,
I would say so. I think documenting the journey has really helped with that. Having to post a YouTube video every month saying, all right, I'm going to spend 4 hours a day learning Spanish. It's a lot harder for me to then not do that, because then I have to go, all right, well, I haven't done that this month. Or, you know, being public about it has definitely helped with that. Obviously, not being able to do garbage activities just by default makes it very easy to do that. You can add a lot of layers of friction, and this is the way I constructed the model. I call it the Fortress model for removing online entertainment completely. You basically have a trigger to do a behavior, and then for that trigger to become an action, it has to go through layers of your fortress. So think about, you have a trigger to play video games. And then for that trigger to become you playing video games, it has to run through the layers of your fortress. So that would include, what is your personal identity about playing video games? how do you feel? What are your thoughts about doing or playing video games? What access do you have to playing video games? What are the social implications? What do people think about you when you play video games? And then finally, your willpower. And if you can strengthen up each of these layers, it becomes very, very difficult for a trigger to do a bad behavior to become an action. And if I've built the personal identity and the belief that, okay, I'm someone that spends 4 hours a day learning Spanish, I post that to a lot of people. I have social implications that if I don't do that, then people are gonna look badly upon me. And I make it very easy. I create an environment that makes it very easy. Then these actions become very easy to do. The same thing with getting in good shape or running the marathons. The more layers that you can add to make it very likely for you to do these activities makes it a lot easier. If you're just the default, okay, I'll do this when I feel like it, when I feel motivated, very hard to do. But if you set up a lot of layers that make it, add pressure and make it more likely for you to do it, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, I agree. And do you also think that your desire to reach the goals that you've set for yourself and your belief that you can become that person is also more pressure?
Yeah, for sure. And you build up this belief and desire the more that you do, the more that you can say, okay, well, I did this last month, so I can do this. And you keep building up the proof and the belief. And you go, okay, well, I believe that I can do this. And you build up the identity that I'm someone that can do that. That, again, adds another layer of pressure. And the more of this pressure that we can add, the better. If your pressure is a time restriction, that's a very stressful pressure. I think there are better pressures you have, like self-belief, right? Like a personal identity. This is more positive fuel. It's not as much of a dirty fuel of I'm low on time, my eyes are red and it's 4 a.m., but I've got to do it. Like that's you've had that exact same experience of I need to get up at 5 a.m. and I need to work on my side business from now until the time I go to work, and then I'll get home and go to the gym, and that's it for my day. And that's 5 days of the week. And it's a tough position to be in.
Yeah, it's not where you want to be. We're definitely grateful to have burned the boats.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with what you're saying about like your goals and your personal identity being like positive pressure. And I like what you talked about there, in that you've proved to yourself that you can do it. So now it's almost, that it's now a choice. It's not I've set myself this goal and then I don't know if I can do it or not and I'm just going to try. It's like, no, you've done it before, you can do it. Now, if you don't do it, it's just you've made bad choices.
And that's a little bit scary for people sometimes. I think the reason a lot of people like to not take on responsibility is that it allows you to say, this is out of my control, there's nothing I could do about it. That's why I didn't accomplish it. When you build the belief that you can do something and when you have proof that you've done it, it's scary. Because now it's like, the reason you didn't do that is because you didn't do it. It has nothing to do with your external circumstances. It's literally just that you didn't put in the work. And that's kind of a more harsh reality to face than the fact that, I can't do this because I was born in this country, or I have these sort of genetics, or whatever it is. This is completely out of my control, nothing to do with me. There's sort of an easier position to be in than I could have done this. There is a mountain of proof that I can do this, but I just didn't do it.
Yeah, that is easier than I take responsibility for my ability to be able to achieve that thing and I don't achieve it. And then I think the pinnacle is I take responsibility for it. I am completely satisfied with my level of effort and commitment to it, to the point where even if you don't achieve it, you're like, okay, that's okay.
Yeah. It just means you got the inputs wrong, because we talk about, in our last podcast, we talked about consistency, and we talked about the consistency equation. And I talk about this almost every podcast, and it's set yourself the equation of, if I do these actions over a long enough period of time, it would be unreasonable that I don't achieve my goal. If you've done it over a long enough period of time that it will be unreasonable that you don't achieve your goal, and you don't achieve it, it's because you probably had the wrong inputs. You were incorrect about the actions. And then rather than going, well, damn, I didn't do it, it's like, okay, there is a fundamental issue in my model. I didn't choose the correct inputs. There is something I need to change about this for this goal to become a reality. It's not, I couldn't do it, damn, that sucks. It's more that I need to change something about my actions, because the actions are the only thing that can influence change and growth. So you just need to change the actions in some way to eventually get there.
Yeah, and sometimes you almost only discover what those actions are once you've been through the process of leaving it for a long enough time to where, okay, I should have had success at this point. And that's just part of the journey, but you're a better person because of it, and you're able to tell this amazing story. And like ultimately, yeah, you've built up your character. You've become the type of person that will be able to achieve that goal.
Yeah, and you're going to learn. If you were wrong about your inputs, it's like, great, these are incorrect. Now I can learn and now I can change. I think a lot of the issue and a lot of the fear that we have comes from setting arbitrary deadlines on these goals and going, I have to achieve it by now. This is really frustrating. But if you don't achieve it, it's like, okay, let me learn. I need to change my input in some way so this eventually becomes a reality. It's not that scary. If you just go, I'm just going to keep doing this until it works, it's not as scary as, I need to do it by this time. It didn't happen. Damn it. I quit. I failed.
Yeah. And like, we had a whole podcast on fear, but yeah. Fear is related to what we're talking about today about burning the boats. Like, there's a huge level of fear in burning the boats because it feels like this irreversible change. You're like, I'm setting myself on this course, which means if I fail, everything's going to go to hell and like it's all going to fall apart. That fear definitely is, that flame is lit.
Yeah. Why do you think it is so hard for people to burn the boats?
I think it's what we touched on when I was giving my example of the 9 to 5 with the self-belief. Like, it really starts with a mindset shift, with, getting rid of your limiting beliefs that you can't achieve these things or you're not a consistent enough person to do these actions. There's a lot of like internal work there that has to happen to where you can be the type of person that commits to one action and burns boats without fear stopping you. Because essentially that's all it is. Like, everyone wants to get to the goal, and they know that burning the boats will get them, closer to, faster towards the goal. It's just fear stopping you all the time. And so essentially it's just you building up your self-belief, your personal identity to where it's not scary anymore. But it makes sense why it's so hard. Like, fear stops you from doing the things that you know you should do.
Mm. Yeah. I remember the process of me quitting my job. It was trying to rationalize it as if there's some kind of magical number of the saving I need to hit before I can quit. And every month, the number just got smaller and smaller. I was like, okay, I need to have $30,000 or $40,000 saved up. And then a few weeks later, it's like, well, I could probably do this on 35. And it's like, maybe I can do this on 20. And I just realized these are just arbitrary numbers, and all that matters is, do I have belief and faith that I can do this, and I can do this for long enough that it will eventually work? It has very little to do with these arbitrary savings goals that we set, or my side business needs to be making X dollars per month. It's more just having conviction in what you're actually doing.
100%. Yeah, I think you'll remember when, I said to you multiple times, oh yeah, I'll quit my job when my side hustle is making X money per month. Because then I'll feel stable and it won't be super scary. But I was probably never going to get to that point if I didn't burn the boats. Like, it would have just been impossible only doing the 5 to 9.
Yeah. And what is harder for you to be working in 9 to 5 and then in your 5 to 9 trying to get your side hustle to X dollars per month, or quitting your 9 to 5 and then putting all of your effort into getting your side hustle, which is now your main hustle, to the point where it's getting X dollars per month? I think one of the biggest discoveries that we found is that it doesn't cost very much to live. And if you're not working a 9 to 5, you don't have to be living in this expensive first world country that you're currently living, paying these huge rents, big taxes. You don't really need to be doing that. You're spending money on cars and fuel, and you're spending money on these fancy clothes and really nice food. We talked about this yesterday. The healthiest food in the world is the cheapest stuff. It's like Whole Foods. This is the cheapest stuff. If you're spending money on eating out, you're spending money on buying fancy cars and putting upgrades on the cars and getting nice watches and stuff like that. This is eating into your freedom. It costs very, very little to, for example, live in South America or live in Southeast Asia. You can just live in these countries, continue to work on your online business until the point where you can unlock better countries. And you might realize that these aren't even better countries in the first place. They're just higher costs of living.
Yeah. No, it's a really cool thing to think about, and it's something that we're about to go off and start testing, which is super exciting.
Yeah. I think the other big reason that people really fear burning the boats is you're leaving comfort behind for uncertainty. I think Naval said the most addicting drug is the wage, the salary, because you get so comfortable and so used to it. And when it's gone, you go, oh, what do I do? I can no longer fund this lifestyle. Oh, this is scary. This is uncertain. I don't know when I'm going to make my next dollar. And that is scary. You're leaving the certainty of, I can earn this much per month. It's guaranteed. We think it's guaranteed because we assume that our job is completely stable and fine. And then over time, I might increase, adjusted to inflation probably, but it'll increase a little bit and I continue to live my current lifestyle, and leaving that comfort and certainty for something that is less certain theoretically. Like, okay, I might not be making X dollars per week, but I got to ask you the question, if working in your current job, doing what you're doing is not where you want to be, it's not who you want to become, the only certainty is that you're going to live a life that you don't want to live. There is the only certainty right there. At least if I take this new path, there's a chance. And I think that was the biggest mindset shift that I had when I went, yeah, that's it. Why am I working here? Let me quit. Let me go all in on this thing, because if I continue down this path, it guarantees me to live the life I don't want to live. And if I can change, at least there's a chance.
Yeah, no, I went through the exact same mindset shift, and it's such a powerful one. And something I also want to touch on, we're talking about fear here and why it stops you from burning the boats. You catastrophize the worst case scenarios when you think about burning the boats. You think, oh, I might quit my job and I'll go all in on my side hustle, but then it will fail and then I'll be homeless and my parents won't love me and I'll be on the streets begging for food. Like, mentally, that's probably where you're going to, or at least that's the level of fear that's being triggered in your head. And I think the more that you can prove to yourself that you are the type of person that can just figure things out, and you're willing to like give up a bit of life comfort or some of your, the finer things to be able to make something that's really fulfilling possible, you just reduce that fear. Like if you go, okay, well, I can live without a car. I can live in a small 1-bed apartment. I don't need to go out to eat 3 times a week. If I run out of money, I can do Uber Eats. I can pick up a warehousing job. I can find some casual work. Like you have that belief that you're going to be fine no matter what, even if everything falls apart. Like, great if you can rely on family and some friends, sleep on a couch here, that's even better. But you really have to believe that you're the type of person that will just get by no matter what, because then you remove that. You put a floor on like the fear and like, okay, well, it's not going to go past this point because I know even if it gets to here, I'm going to be okay.
The fear is in the vague, not in the specific. And I think one of the big quotes that we keep telling each other is, we'll figure it out. Everything in our life so far, we've just figured it out. You may not be 100% certain about what you're going to do, but you're going to figure it out. Talk about the camper van rental business. Started off, okay, we're going to buy a van and then convert it into a camper van and sell it. I hadn't really picked up a power tool in my life before, I'll be honest. And we just went, all right, cool. So step 1, we buy a van. Let's do that. And then we bought the van. And it's like, okay, what do you do next? I don't know. We'll figure it out. And we slowly figured it out. And we slowly built a camper van. And that's been the cash cow of the business so far. And we just continue to figure it out along the way. And it's a example, it's a metaphor of, I think, your life in general is that as long as you have conviction that it will eventually work, you will figure it out along the way. And there's no need to have such fear, because I think we're designed to have this fear. It's within our biology. If you were someone who was unafraid and you heard a rustling in the bushes and you just didn't care, you're probably going to be fine, but it could be a tiger. And over 1 million years, that means that all the people that weren't afraid have been kind of taken out of our biology, and we are designed to be afraid. And I think that made sense historically because there was a real justifiable fear of, I might die, I might starve, I might be kicked out of my community, which means I'm going to starve and die. But now the worst case is so low, but the upside is so high. And I don't think we're discounting it properly. I think there's still so much we overvalue the fear, the chance that things go terribly wrong. But the reality is the chance that things go terribly right is very, very possible, especially when you don't have this fear.
Yeah. yeah, it's one of those things that you're eventually going to have to tackle if you're doing anything that's not the ordinary path. There's going to be fear because you can't just rely on the proof that everyone else has that, oh, well, you're going to follow this path and these are the steps and this is when it's going to happen and you can expect this and you can expect that. There's all this uncertainty, which means there's all that fear. But it's just something you have to tackle.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about the 9 to 5 is, okay, you go to university and then you get a job, which a lot of people finish university and they realize that's not even necessarily the case. You're not guaranteed to get a job, but okay, let's say you get a job when you finish university and you have a graduate role, and then you finish a graduate role and then you become a consultant, for example. And then you be a consultant for 2 years, you be a good boy, you rock up 9 to 5, and then after 2 years you can become a manager. And then 5 years later you become a senior manager. And then 5 years later you become a partner. And then you start making more money as a partner. And then you hate your life and you have enough money and you retire. And it's guaranteed. And it's pretty laid out for you. If you go, I'm going to leave all that guarantee, all that certainty behind for something that is unknown, it may seem scary, but that's because it is very vague. You don't know what's going to happen. But when you get specific about it, what is the real downside? Well, I might be humbled temporarily. What is the upside? I live the life I want to live. I like my odds here.
Yeah, and it's funny, I was just before we started, one of our friends was telling us about the original story about burning the boats and Alexander the Great going off to fight this battle. And he burns the boats that his army has arrived on. He gets them to throw out all of their water. So they just have to fight this battle. And then if they win, they'll get water on the other side. They'll be able to continue. And I'm thinking, soldier number 672 that's shaking in his boots when he steps off the boat, sees them gets burned, throws out his water. How does he feel? He probably has a fuck it moment of like, all right, well, my options are fight and die or fight and win. Like that's probably a very liberating feeling when you're not plagued by, oh, like we could just retreat here, like I don't have to be. No, now you're here. Like there's no other option. You're backed in the corner. Like it is a very extreme way to alleviate that fear. I was just thinking about that poor soldier.
But it's beautiful because what we don't realize is that all that's left on those boats is back to misery. It's back to the life you don't want to live. So those boats aren't helping you at all. It's better to just not have that option. Just go, let me fight and live, rather than coward out and die.
Yeah.
At least there's a chance.
Yeah.
At least there's a chance.
No, that's so true. Like retreating, going back on the boat, arriving back in your hometown, having run away from the battle. Like you're not going to be welcomed with open arms. So yeah. No, I think the army probably performed a lot better because of it, I would have to say.
You're almost guaranteed.
Fight like savages.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what we're going to do now. Like we're going to attack our goals with like so much more ferocity because we've burned the boats, we've backed ourselves into we feel like we've backed ourselves into a corner. And so, yeah, you have more potency to really attack life.
I think that was a underrated driver that I don't really talk about 2025 in terms of helping me make progress, was that there is no other option now. This is the only thing I can do. And that really gave me a lot of fire. It's like, you've just said, screw this to the path that everyone has told you to do. You basically said, all right, I take your advice and I'm going to throw it in the bin and I'm going to do what I think is the right thing to do. Now running back is much more sad because you have to come back and say, I failed and I didn't take your advice and you were right. And I'm sorry, but I'm just never going to do that. I'm burning the boat, so there's no option. It is just, I will be humbled in the eyes of others for long enough to the point where I eventually achieve my goals. But I will remain humbled and I will not return. I will not return to the boats. And I think having that driver really helped me take action to know that I don't want anyone to say I told you so. I want to be the one who can say that, although I don't want to, but I want to be able to.
Yeah, and I mean, let's touch on that because a big part of burning the boats is, the people who are closest to you, and we talk about how it's usually just one voice that you think about, telling you, oh, like you could be making a really big mistake here, or have you thought about this? Like, oh, well, what's going to happen if, there's always people in your life that care about you, that are going to advise against burning the boats. And I think usually people, especially, age 16 to 25, it's a parent or parent figure that just wants the best for you in a way that they want certainty. They want certainty that you're going to be okay. They don't really care if you're going to reach your fullest potential and you achieve your dreams or not. They just want your safety. They just want you to be definitely okay.
Yeah, that is a very good point. There's the downside of you pursuing something great and ending up in a really bad state in their mind is a lot more scary than you just guaranteeing to be good, guaranteed to be fine, and probably living a similar life to them, which they consider, this was a great life, I was happy with this, so you should do the same thing and this will work. And I think it's a lot more of a peace of mind to say, okay, they're doing the thing that I did, and there's very few ways to really screw this up. Whereas if you burn the boats and you try and go after this, there is a chance you'll screw this up. And what we've been doing throughout all these podcasts is trying to lay the foundations of how you can minimize the chance that you screw it up, right? Things like long-term thinking, things like having consistency, right?
Yep.
All of these things building on top of each other significantly decrease the likelihood that you end up in a bad situation. Because if you decide, all right, I'm going to burn the boats and go after this, and then 2 months later you go, I don't want to do this, and then you run back, your parents or whoever it is that's telling you this isn't a good idea is going to be right.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense. Like, you're burning the bridges, you obviously have, or burning the boats, you have a high risk appetite. Like, this is a risky choice. And the person who's telling you no probably doesn't have the same appetite for risk that you do, but they care about you, so they're trying to enforce on you their perspective of it, which is just a lower level of risk. And that can be really difficult to deal with, because you probably care about what this person thinks and you want to please them in some way. But I just have a reminder, because I had to remind myself of this, that the biggest disservice you can do to them is not being true to yourself, because you'll only build resentment for them for stopping you doing the thing that you really wanted to do and becoming the person that you really want to be. So that's something that sometimes I still have to remind myself about. So
yeah, I think that's a underrated friction for burning the boats, is just the opinions of others. I think it's such a big one, is that we really value the opinions of others, especially the people closest to us. And if those people are telling you not to do this, it definitely makes it a lot harder. And you of course want their support, but I think if it's your dream, then you have to be willing to do it regardless of whether they support you or not.
Yeah, it's a very personal thing. And yeah, I mean, we have a whole podcast on staying true to yourself, and I think there's lots to dig into there.
Yeah, and another good podcast that we had was creating goals that are aligned with you. And one of the things that I said is a good exercise to do is saying, if everyone whose opinion you cared about died, what do your goals look like? Because if your goals look different to how they look right now, it probably means that your goals aren't necessarily aligned with who you want to become, what you want to do, but more what other people are pressuring you to do, how you might look in the eyes of others. And I think shifting it to the goal being really aligned with you and who you want to become is amazing. And it also makes it more likely for you to actually stick to it, pursue this long term, and see the success. One of the things that I thought about when I was working my job is that it will be impossible for me to be the best at this or really good at this, because I don't care about it. I'm not interested in it. It's not passionate for me. So of course I'm not going to do well. If it's something that you're truly passionate, you truly care about, it's truly aligned with you, it's very easy to take actions to move you towards your goals. If you don't give a shit about it, you're not going to actually get there, because you don't care about it enough to put in the reps, put in the actions required for you to get to the outcome.
Yeah, no, and it's something that I think about a lot as well, is sometimes the goal doesn't really have to change if you're thinking about doing it for other people. Sometimes it's just like the wording and the mindset shift, like making it about what your identity, what you can do, what's within your control. Like, your goal should never have too much, shouldn't be able to be impacted too much by external factors, because then none of the equations work, because you can do everything within your power, but oh, but Mercury didn't, turn left or, rotate slightly, completely out of your control. It has to be things that are within your control.
Yeah. I think if we're deciding to take on full responsibility and burn the boats, I think if you're doing this, you need the majority of the factors that are going to influence your success to be within your control. If you decide to take on some sort of project or burn the boats for something that you can't control, a factor or a variable that contributing to your potential failure is completely out of your control, that's genuine risk. But I think if the factors that are contributing to your success or failure are all dictated by your actions, I don't see it as very risky at all.
It's just fear.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are 3 things I can do right now to burn the boats?
First of all, aligning your goals with you and having a proper goal. If you don't have a North Star, if you don't know this is what I want to do, we talked about when you burn the boats and you have all of this time back and attention and focus to allocate into the thing. If you don't know what the thing is, what are you burning the boats for? Like, you need to actually know what you want to do. So aligning your goals with you having proper goals is very important. This was a whole podcast we touched on. So I'd say that's absolutely step 1. Then step 2, set yourself the equation, the consistency equation. We talked about this in the podcast number 14, last podcast. Set yourself the equation of, if I do these actions over a long enough period of time, I will achieve my goal. And this goal is aligned with you. You know, this is what I have to do. It's better, or it's the best, if all of these actions, all these inputs are directly correlated with what you can do. That's very important, but that's definitely step 2. And step 3, I'd say identify what are the biggest time inputs that aren't moving you towards your goal. We talked a lot about the job, because I think for a lot of people, they're working a job they hate. They're allocating 40 hours of their most productive and efficient hours towards something they don't like. You need to identify these things and remove them. If that's, I'm allocating 30 hours a week to playing video games, or I'm allocating 20 hours a week to watching Netflix or scrolling TikTok, then that's the boat you have to burn, right? But you need to allocate what are the time inputs that are not moving me towards my goal, and how can I burn those? Because those are the boats. Those are the boats you have to burn. So I'll say those are the 3 steps. Align the goals with you, set yourself the consistency equation, find the boats and burn them.
Yeah, find the right boat and be really truthful with yourself, because it's going to be a difficult conversation and a difficult realization when you figure out like, oh, this thing that I really love, that I spend lots of time doing, is the worst thing for me.
Yeah, it's very easy to burn the boat of a job because most of us hate it. But if the boat's gaming, or the boat's watching TV, or it's following a bunch of sports teams, or keeping up with politics, that might be hard to burn because, as you say, you enjoy it. It feels really good. It produces a lot of dopamine, of course. That's going to be a hard boat to burn. Obviously, the job's easy because you hate it, but there's a lot of boats that you might really like and might make you feel really good. But those are probably the best ones to burn, because those are also the boats that you're most likely to allocate and spill your excess time into, right? If you've burnt the boat of the full-time job, but you still have the boat of gaming, you're just gonna put all of that time into gaming, right? Burning the boats, even if they feel good, is very important.
Yeah, you don't want to burn the little tinny and leave the cruise ship right there to go back onto, which I think is probably a risk that some people fall into.
Yep. Okay, what are your 3 steps for burning the boats?
My 3 steps for burning the boats, and I'm thinking about someone that's in a similar position to me right now, either about to or just having burnt the boats. 2 thought exercises, and then one physical characteristic to focus on. The thought exercises are: play through till the very bitter end, the worst case scenario, and then game plan, okay, well, what am I going to do here? Eliminate the vague that's in that fear. And make it specific. Okay, if this happens, I'll do this. If that happens, I'll do this. If it gets to this point, I'll do this. Okay, now I don't have to think about and like let the fear build up in that scenario anymore. Second thought exercise, I do the exact same thing, but for the positive. Okay, I burnt the bridges. I can spend this amount of time doing this. What do I think I'm able to achieve? What will that look like in 1 year? What will that look like in 5 years? What can I do here to maybe to have this kind of outcome? Really just let yourself play with what's possible there. Dream really big. And then the one thing I would focus on is your environment. You're probably at a big shift in your life. You've burnt some kind of boat, something is changing. Perfect time to reset what your external environment looks like, because this will be one of the biggest things that reduces the amount of friction to you doing the actions that you want to do and increases the amount of friction between the tasks that you don't want to do. So at pivotal shifts in your life, it's a great opportunity to just reset your environment and set it up in a way that is going to serve you to get closer to your goals faster.
I love that. Getting specific, I think what you talk about there, the fear is probably the biggest thing preventing us from burning the boats in the first place. And I think your first two steps there of being clear about the worst case and being clear about the good case reduces that fear significantly. We have a lot of that fear in the vague, not in the specific. Getting very clear is huge. And then of course, the environment's a massive one. It was our first ever podcast talking about creating a good environment, because this is going to facilitate the change. Now we have the physical environments, which is really important. And we also have the mental environments, right? Things like the dopamine rewiring. Getting both of those environments right makes it very likely that when you do burn the boats, you're going to see very, very good outcomes.
Yeah, it's definitely been the biggest impact for me recently, having burnt the boats and then having all this time where I'm at home, like I'm in this new environment in hours that I'm never usually there. And so having it set up in a way where, okay, like everything's ready to go. I can sit down, I can do my work, I can get my meal prep right out the fridge. Like everything is set up for me to execute the tasks and live the life that I want for myself, is just going to make it more likely that I'm able to achieve my goals and be fulfilled and happy while I do it.
I want to get into your head a little bit, because now that I think about this more, you have burned boats in such a significant way that's going to completely change the trajectory of your life. I want to take you back about a year and a half ago. You are living in an apartment with your long-term girlfriend, right, of 4 years, 5 years. You are in a full-time job, locked in. You're now single, you've now quit the job, you're now going all in as an entrepreneur. What is different about those two mental states?
I think I talked about it not too long ago, that I was upset that I had given up on my dreams. And I'd probably just let fear and comfort rule my decision making for my own life. Like thinking back to 18 months ago, committed to the full-time job and thinking that was going to be my career, settling for a relationship that wasn't good for me. I was too scared to make any changes, and there was enough comfort where I was like, okay, well, I can live like this. And fast forward to now, I've, some of those, it was all incremental, the small dominoes started falling, which, started changing how I thought about external things, and, like my job, like my partner. And then, it turned internal. I started thinking differently. Okay, well, if those things are changing, well, then maybe I can change how I think about myself, or how I think about my future, or what I think is possible. And, it was, incremental dominoes started falling, and I was able to believe in myself and reconnect with the idea that I could be, I don't want to say better, but I could reimagine what was possible for myself. I think I'd put limits on what was possible because of choices I had made that I was unhappy with. But then I realized that, I'm in control. I take responsibility for my life. And it's been quite the journey, but I'm really happy to be where I am now.
Yeah, because that was a big boat that we haven't really talked about, but that relationship was definitely something that was restricting your potential. And I know you don't want to use the word better, but I think you have become better in the sense that you are better in how you perceive yourself and how you perceive the outcomes of your life. Better is different for different people. People want different things. But I think if you thought about those two outcomes in your life, I think you would consider your new journey to be better.
Yeah, it's more aligned to the person I think I always wanted to become. So in that way, it is better in every way. I think I'll be a more fulfilled person living out my life how I'm choosing to now than how I was then. I was full of resentment, and it was starting to appear in resentment for other people, but I think deep down it was resentment for myself, for the person that I was becoming, and that I at some point knew that I was destined for more.
It's a huge mental unlock when you realize what you can do. I really noticed, especially working my job, it took a big mental toll on me in that it restricted who I thought I could be. It's like, you are this person, these are the people that are above you, you're not better than these people, you're worse than these people for now. I think that's kind of the issue with the hierarchical structure of 9-to-5 jobs, especially considering usually the way you progress is just by being there for long periods of time. And it very much puts you in a box and caps your potential. Do you think that now that you've kind of burnt the boats, you've unlocked a sense of, oh, there's just a lot I can achieve now?
Definitely. I think the one thing that comes with the career is that like this is where you fit. And like this is where you will fit, and then this is where you will fit. And I think burning the bridges and just entrepreneurship in general is being okay with the idea that you don't fit. But that's great. It means, okay, I don't fit anyway. It means I get to decide where am I going to be, who am I going to be. And that's another huge benefit of quitting the job, is it reaffirms that, okay, you don't fit here anymore. And like, you probably burnt the boats because you don't want to fit there anymore. So now you have this opportunity to choose who you're going to be and where you're going to end up.
It's so exciting. It's really exciting to see how the potential shifts and who you can become. It becomes endless. Like, the possibilities do become endless. I think you become so restricted into, I'm this person, this is my status within my job, this is who I can become. And especially with the limited hours you have available, that kind of is all you can do and all you can be. And then you get rid of that and it's like, whoa, I can really be anyone. And maybe I'm below the status that I was when I'm in my job right now, but a few years, I'm going to be way above that. I'm probably going to be way further, especially if you can reallocate your time very effectively.
Yeah, and what a great story to tell. And I think what's a really interesting thing is you go to a party and you start introducing yourself to people. The first thing that comes up is, oh, what do you do? And you give them your job title, because like that is essentially your identity, and it's what small talk is 90% of the time, talking about work, because it's 8 hours of your day. I think it's a great practice in general, even if you do have a career and you are, a psychologist or a doctor or whatever, to not lead with your job title. Who are you? Because it's really not who you are. It's yeah. But you're kind of forced to do that when you burn the boats.
In a way, because I remember one of the things you spoke about in earlier podcasts was you are your actions and you are what you do. And I think the reason that we lead with that question is that for a lot of us, the job is the thing that is 80% of our life. It's 80% of our conscious, focused hours is on that thing. Therefore, it's 80% of our actions. Therefore, it is who we are. So I think for a lot of people, they build that identity around the job they have because that's who they are. And then when that's gone, it's like, who am I really? What am I other than this job that I have? And it's a weird identity crisis you come into.
Yeah. It's a good one though.
It is.
There's a lot of good things on the other side of it, that's for sure.
I must say I still struggle when people say, what do you do, to give them a good answer. I'm still trying to figure that out, but it's exciting. All right. Well, that was burning the boats. Is there any parting words, Tobes?
No, I'm just, you could probably see there's been a smile on my face for quite a lot of this podcast. Yeah. And there was probably a good 48 hours where there was a smile on my face, pretty wide. So yeah. You could say I'm very happy to have burnt the boats, and I'm really excited for this year.
This is what burning the boats looks like. A very happy guy right here. Yeah. Okay. So that was episode 15. If you guys want to watch these podcasts live, if you want to join in the Q&A calls, if you want to access a bunch of great resources, you can join the Modern Monk community at school.com/Modern Monk. It's completely free. Always there for you if you want to join.
Get on board.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
All right. Cool. We'll see you next week for another fantastic episode.
See you then. Cheers.
Nice. Oh, might have to keep that in.
Crispy.